Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Araceli, and each week my co-host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who face some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged on the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us all, no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical and dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder that change is always possible, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
Brenda Bridges is a certified divorce financial analyst, certified divorce coach, financial advisor, mediator, and yoga instructor. But beyond her impressive credentials, she's a woman who's transformed personal devastation into powerful purpose. After facing a financial and emotionally crushing divorce in her 50s, Brenda rebuilt not just her bank account, but her sense of self-worth. With only $1,000 left in her banking account, she defied the odds, launched a new career, wrote a book, and trademarked a healing process that now empowers other women to reclaim their power after divorce. Brenda joins us on In the Black to share how losing everything became the foundation for gaining herself. If you've ever felt stuck, undervalued, or uncertain about your next chapter, this conversation will open a path forward. Welcome, Brenda, to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to hear from you. I was part of a group called Single Moms Rock for several years after my divorce and noticed a lot of people get stuck. And so I am very interested to learn how you didn't do that and you move forward with your life. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, who you are, just kind of the basics as far as where you're at right now in your life.
Okay. What I'm doing now, the majority of my time, I'm working with people to divorce out of court. And what that looks like is there's a process you referred to, what I trademarked. It's called informed mediation. And it's kind of looking at all the different modalities available to a person when they're facing divorce and saying what really works, what is needed, what is the least damaging, how can we make this less expensive, and then packaging that process to help people get the information they need, which is often lacking in mediation, but stay out of court and be empowered and make their own decisions, which doesn't happen when you're in that attorney litigated court process. So that's the majority of my time. I still work as a financial advisor. Most of that is with people post-divorce process when they are rebuilding too, or figuring out how to transition. And then I'm, living life and gardening and traveling and that kind of thing.
Awesome.
Brenda, take us back to that moment post-divorce when you had just $1,000 left in your bank account, and it says there are no alimony. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
What were the emotions and how did you begin to pick up the pieces?
In all honesty, the emotions that kind of led to that decision and the no alimony decision were, different people. We have different responses as we go through divorce. And mine was kind of I'll show you. I had been staying at home for the majority of my marriage. There were, I would work, but my priority was kid raising. And then my ex lost his job. So that's when I became a financial advisor because I was teaching yoga and was like, well, yoga put children through college and yoga has no benefits. And I think I need to do something else. So I went to work as a financial advisor. And then about a year and a half later, he still was unemployed and came home and said, I want a divorce. I'm done. And we went through that whole process, and there was just a part of me that was like, I am going to make this work. And for the first few years, I did have like lump sum alimony just until my kids were out of high school. And rules wise, based on the duration of my marriage, I was married 26 years, I would have had permanent alimony in the state I lived in. But it was a decision I made to get done with the process. And because I felt I could rebuild my life without that. Um, but it had its lows. It wasn't like I got divorced and I started in a new career and then, it was just up from there. It really was challenging because, like I said, I got down to $1,000 and was needing to do an awful lot of reinvention of how I was living life, looking at life, working through this new career. And it also led me to kind of find more of a passion in what I was doing. So being a financial advisor, very important. Everyone should have one. But really, I really found my groove was helping people in divorce, because I find there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much, people want to get into the drama of it and the trauma of it. And they're like, oh, how could this happen? What's going on? Like the soap opera dirt version. And people don't get good information when that's the focus. I met with someone today for the first time, and she was telling me when I met with her about all the research she's done online, except the research she's done has been more chat groups. So she's really influenced by people who have gone through divorce or are going through divorce. They are having a really negative process or they had a negative outcome. And they're not focused on getting out of it. They're focused on swirling around in it. And this is where she's getting the majority of her information instead of someone who has vetted what she's hearing. So there are a lot of myths that are perpetuated when people get their information from that. There are a lot of sources that, it's the I saw it on the internet or I heard it on the internet, so it's got to be real, without being vetted. As opposed to like you on your podcast are going to make sure whoever you talk to actually has some credentials and is vetted. It's not just, anonymous number 729 who says you should do this with your life in very important decisions. So what became really important to me was just making sure people had good information to make these decisions on. And then whatever decisions they make, but they have the information they need to do that and own it. Make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So important. And I love what you said about people just swirling around in that drama, because that was definitely my experience. I went to a share your story night, and there were people who had been divorced for 13 years, I think was the longest one, and we're still in that, like, well, he doesn't provide child support, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. And I was like, you're 13 years out. Like, you should have a different life at this point.
And it's not to say it's not real. Unfortunately, it happens all the time. It's way too real. But a lot of that is actually due to misinformation. It's also due to, we have a really challenging way of ending marriages everywhere in this country. And we almost criminalize the process instead of keeping it out of courts. That's the backdrop to make all these family and financial decisions. So yeah, that's kind of messy. And even given that it's messy, I guess I look at it from two different directions. One is there's so much of this information that says you need to do this, you have to do this, you should do this. Again, not from vetted sources, but from that kind of, I don't know, what do we call it? Just the social meme of divorce. There's so much of that. And a lot of that, I'm like, why? Like, shouldn't we be asking, well, is that true? Do I need to let a judge decide how my kids are parented? Do I need to let a judge decide or attorneys negotiate how we're going to divide our assets? Is it true? I don't think it's true. I think there are better ways, but so much of it is not questioned. It's just accepted that, well, this is how divorce is. Divorce is bad. And honestly, divorce can be good. No really good marriage ends in divorce. There's something happening where one or both parties aren't living a good life, and that's why they end the marriage or stray from the marriage or hide things from the marriage or whatever. So, divorce can actually lead to people starting new, finding themselves, figuring out a new passion, making new friends, getting new support. It can lead to a lot of really good things that we tend to discount. And if we're in victim, and like the story you told about 13 years out, you're still rehashing how horrible your ex was, you're not really living your life. So, how do we help people get out of that, get good information, make good decisions, and live a life that they're really loving or at
Yeah,
least enjoying? And I don't mean to sugarcoat it. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, divorce, right?
yeah,
But there's you can get beyond it. People can get past it, and there can be a way better life and outcome and relationships, I believe.
absolutely. You mentioned that you didn't really value yourself enough prior to and leading up to your divorce. How did you begin that journey of rediscovering and reclaiming your self worth?
I think for me, it was a really long road. It was taking responsibility for my decisions. I think a lot of it didn't happen until my kids were actually out of the house. Again, just my story, because I had conditioned or allowed myself to put me last. And, is my husband taken care of? Are we doing what he wants to do? Are my kids taken care of? Am I supporting them? Am I doing what they want to do? I fell apart a lot during my divorce. I wish I could say, oh my gosh, I was like the role model of how to do divorce with grace and integrity. And I was not. And I don't think I liked that me. I wanted to be proud of how I was walking through the world. I wanted to be secure in my own decisions. And I think when you spent decades second guessing yourself or first thinking as you're making decision like, is this okay with another person, will this serve another person, what will people think of me, all that stuff, all that baggage, it's a lot of work to clear it out because it's ingrained. So for me it was pretty ingrained, and working through it was, you know finding really good friends and support. It was doing a lot of introspection and work in that direction. It was taking time to really think about, why am I doing this? Whatever the thing is, why am I doing it? Is it because I think I should for someone else, or is it because I'm really authentic in it? And that, for me at least, was not like a switch flipped and suddenly it was like, oh, I'm empowered and have good boundaries. Look at me. It was really a lot of work.
Going back to, because it sounded like it was just abrupt when he came back and he was like, "I want a divorce." Did you see that coming? Did it shook you, or what? Take us through that.
I was in the moment very surprised. It was, I have a whole I have a whole piece in my book about how to tell someone you want a divorce. I have blogs on it, but it was how I would never recommend anyone tell someone they want a divorce. I was literally sitting at the table, getting ready to go to work. He came back from his Starbucks run, with his big cup of coffee, and just leaned against the counter and said, I was going to write you a letter, but I thought I should tell you in person. I'm done. This isn't going to work. I'm not doing counseling. Now leave. Like, that was it. That was it. And it wasn't, like I said, no good marriage ends in divorce, right? So it wasn't like I thought, oh my goodness, everything is rainbows and unicorns in our marriage. How could this happen? But I didn't expect at that time that he was going to say, I want a divorce. I thought it was, things aren't as smooth as they were before, or, yes, there are things we can work on, or he wasn't happy because he hadn't found a new job, or like all these things. I didn't think the culmination of all of that was going to be, I'm done, I'm out. So, and we really haven't had, I would say, a causal conversation since that day. So, and that's one of the things I think is really unfortunate because we didn't get support during that divorce process that I think could have led to a better outcome. Not that we would ever be best friends, but that at least we would be able to communicate with respect, or we would have co-parented differently when the kids were still, before they were adults. So I think it could have gone a lot of different directions and it did not go well. And that's why I do what I do now, to try to help other people just not have that happen for themselves and for their kids.
Yeah, it is such a challenge, especially when you have children involved. I know that's really painful for the kids to go through. No matter what the situation or circumstances, there's always that tendency to think, oh, well, I could have done better. I could have been better. What if I? And having to rebut that and make sure that they know that they are not the reason. And dealing with all of the kids' stuff on top of the emotional stuff of divorce and all of that is it's challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's often overlooked, and the expectations can be out of kilter. Like we talk about, buzzwords in divorce, amicable divorce and conscious uncoupling or co-parenting. And they're nice, lovely words, but then no one is giving a toolbox for like, well, how do you do that? And the expectations seem to be like, well, we're just, we're going to sit beside each other at graduation and we're going to have family dinners still on Thursday nights or what have you. When really, if we support people who, again, got divorced for a reason, um, by giving them tools on how to co-parent, like how do you not put your kids in the middle of this stuff? How do you not make, the side-eyed comments about the other parent and how they always do or never do whatever thing you disapprove of? It really is a transition in communication that I think we would all be really well served if we started looking at divorce less like, oh, you got to win as much as you can and you got to hate the other person, and more like, okay, you're no longer a couple, but you most likely, if you have kids, certainly are going to have some contact throughout the rest of their lives. How are you going to navigate that without putting them in the line of fire? So it was interesting. My daughter, we were talking about something just last week, and she's like, "Oh, I'll tell dad." I'm like, "No, I will. I will have that conversation because it's not your space. Like, you don't need to get in the middle of this." And I think they got really used to like running interference. And it's good for us as divorced parents to realize when that's happening and try to keep them out of it, even as adults.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned starting a new career at 50. So, starting a new career at 50 is no small feat. What gave you the courage to take that leap? And how can others tap into their own sense of possibility, regardless of age?
That's a really good question. I would say the first new career I started was just of necessity because he had lost his job. He wasn't looking for a new job, and what I was doing, I didn't think at the time, and I could have been wrong because I was teaching yoga. I didn't think that it had the upside potential of being able to support a family. So the new career was being a financial advisor. I had no idea what I was getting into. I really didn't understand what being a financial advisor was. It was um, it was at first a lot of work, and I think once I transitioned from purely doing that to something that I was really passionate about, which is helping people avoid financial mistakes in divorce and stay out of court, then it came with much more ease. When you believe in what you're doing, I think it's much easier to put the effort into it. It's much more likely that you're feeling some sense of flow than when you're pushing a boulder uphill and it's not something that you really love or want to be doing. And again, I don't want to be all Pollyanna, like, oh, just follow your bliss, because you might not be able to. You have to earn money. You have to figure out how you're going to buy groceries, especially if in the divorce things haven't gone smoothly for you, which happens all the time. If you can work towards finding out where you get fulfillment and try to align that with what you're doing, I think you're more likely to be successful. I think look for support from positive people, get mentors. Women want to help women. Women want to lift each other up if you find the right people. If you're spending all your time in a chat room or a Facebook group that's drilling down on your ex and how horrible they are, that's the energy you're going to be living in and absorb. If you are looking for her, I want to be like her, and you invite her to coffee or you go to lunch with her and you say, help me figure this out. How did you do what you do? In my experience, that is an ultimate compliment to whomever you're talking to. And they want to help. No one wants to see someone they care about or maybe even acquaintance trampled, unless you've done something really hateful to them or what have you, but they really want to see others succeed. So if you want to change your life, if you want to move forward, if you want to move in the direction of really enjoying how you're spending your days, seek out other people who are doing that and hang out with them and listen to them on podcasts and watch them and go to those Facebook groups. If you're spending time swirling, you're going to just keep swirling. If your energy is all in the negative, I can never, and that'll never happen to me, and all of that, it won't. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I have encountered that even just over the past 2 years in my own world, is trying to decide which people I wanted to hang out with, because I found myself going down a path that I didn't want to be on. And so thankfully I was able to figure that out. But you turned your experience into your mission. Can you walk us through how your personal pain became professional purpose, and you trademarked a process? So what's that process? How does it help women navigate divorce differently?
Okay, sure. So my mission really became, my experience of divorce was really negative, really expensive, really divisive. When it was over, I literally just looked around and went, why? Why was that okay that just happened? Why did we as a society endorse pitting people who used to love each other against each other in essentially a public war? Why? So that started me working as a divorce financial analyst. So that's a CDFA, a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. There was a really big mistake in my divorce worth over $1 million. That was just a oopsie, right? And that was what really motivated me to I was a financial advisor when I went through this, and this happened to me. That can happen to anyone. How do we stop that? So there are more and more CDFAs, and we're trained in the finances of divorce, not the law. That's the lawyer's job. But most of the big high stakes decisions are financial, not legal, in divorce. So I moved into that. And then as I started working in that for a few years, I thought that the emotional side was lacking, that we tell people just make logical decisions, but we're not logical beings. We're behavioral beings. We're driven by our emotions. Is there a higher emotion thing than divorce? Maybe, but it's certainly one of the most, I don't know, activating, I guess is the word. So to tell people just be logical when you're going through this process, when your heart might be breaking and you're afraid you're going to be living out of a grocery cart, and eating cat food, and all your relationships are changing, your life is shifting, is silly. So I became a divorce coach to kind of balance those skill sets. And then I became a mediator. And the process that I trademarked is called informed mediation. And it's really just bringing all three of those together and saying people tend to make good, empowered decisions when they get good information. So, as opposed to a traditional mediation where they may or may not, the parties may or may not have information, they may or may not be prepared. They are often pressured into agreeing to something and making a decision when they don't have any context. In informed mediation, we take all the same financial information, we give them all the same reports. We can look at different scenarios. So if they're saying, well, what if we do this or what if we do this? They can look at that and they both have the same data. And I find that people come to agreement much more readily if we can look at their finances and project forward and they can both go, oh, I'm going to be okay. Or someone might agree to something financially if they see that their spouse who they are divorcing is not going to be okay, but they are. I've seen people who are like adamant, I'm not paying alimony or spousal support or maintenance, depends on the state you live in, what it's called. But they are just like, nope, not paying it. And then when we look at the finances and they see they're going to be really secure in retirement and on, and their spouse will never be able to not work, then they're like, oh, well, you show me that they can be okay and I can be okay, then they come to an agreement. And that happens so frequently. And it never happens in litigation. It just, when they go to court, it really is just get as much as you can and give them as little as they can. And people often aren't okay. So informed mediation is meant to avoid that. And that's where I spend most of my time now, helping people walk through really hard decisions with really high stakes, but do it together. And then, not end up hating on each other as they move on with their lives.
So is this something that you are growing and expanding, or is there more people doing this? Because I think that's just beautiful what you're doing.
That's a good question. That's the dream. Are there more people doing this? Not right now. There are other people. I mean, there are so many professionals working in divorce in this field. I'm sure there are people who practice in that direction. And there are groups I belong to. There's a group of mediators who are practicing. It's called insight mediation. It's just a different style of mediation that allows the people participating to have more ownership. So there are a lot of segments of professionals, I'll say, who look at the damage divorce does, and they're experiencing that in their professional lives every day, who are saying, time out, this is enough. Like there are a lot of people like me who either they've gone through a divorce and they just want to help other people not go through it as poorly, or they're professionals who practice in it and see the damage that's done and say, we got to help people in a different way. Would I say it's the majority? No, not by any means, but I think there are a growing number of people who want to help and realize it's not like we're saying divorce is good, bad, but it happens. So if it happens, can't we make it a better process? Is the outlook. Would I love if more people were practicing informed mediation? Absolutely. We'll see.
Awesome. So, what are some of the most common limiting beliefs women face during or after divorce, and how do you help them shift those beliefs?
It's really interesting because so many women, and this it's stereotypical, but it's my true experience. So many women, even if they have millions, are concerned that they're not going to be okay. They're really afraid not of being alone, but of being destitute. So one that's a really hard transition, especially if they've not been the one taking care of the finances. So one of the ways to support them is it's really again it's information. Like if you've never paid the bills and you haven't figured out your expenses, and that's just maybe you've been raising the children or you've been chief operating officer of the family, not the financial person. Um, Getting the information to just understand, like you don't have to be a financial advisor, but understand the basic workings of your money. Know what's coming in, know what's going out, know what your goals are. Like, do you want to retire at 50 or never? What do you want life to look like? Do you want to live in a cabin by the mountains and just chill, or do you want to travel the world? What is it you want? And then how does that match to what your resources are? And I mean, that's essentially a financial plan, but it's really a plan based on how you want to live your life. And can you support that? Or do you need to do something else? Too many times I'll run into women who might have been divorced like 5, 10 years ago, and they'll be like, oh, I wish I knew you when, because they get their settlement, whatever it is, they finish the divorce, and then it seems like a lot, but they don't have the tools or the toolbox to manage that. And what is a lot and maybe could have supported the lifestyle they want to live is suddenly gone. And then they find themselves literally working retail. Not that there's anything wrong with retail, but not as a choice, not as a preference, but as a, I don't know what else to do. So if people finish their divorce process, they're in a really good position, because part of divorce is you have to know your finances. All that information is gathered together. So you've already done what is for many people the hardest part about financial planning, is getting the info, right? And then if you have a plan and get a partner, there's so many financial advisors or courses or clubs, but someone who can help them match up how they're living and what they're doing to what they have, so that they're making powerful and empowered choices instead of letting it kind of run their life and run away with them. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
So a lot of women have a limiting belief about their ability to manage finances. And it's kind of this, I'm not smart enough, I wasn't trained in it, I've never done it. A lot of limiting beliefs around money, what they deserve or don't deserve, especially if they weren't the breadwinner during their marriage. There's, have I earned it? Am I able to enjoy this? What does it even mean to me? What baggage does money have? A lot of us have baggage from how we grew up. Did you grow up in a household that never talked about money? It was taboo. We don't even speak about it. Did you grow up in a household that, they just spent and spent and spent, and it was like, there will always be more. I don't know where it's coming from, but we're just going to spend it. That impacts how we are as adults. So some of the limiting beliefs are just looking at that. Like, are we operating under what we grew up with or what we were in our marriage? And is it what we want to operate under now or not? Like, what new choices might we be able to make? Some limiting beliefs are relational. I'll never find another partner. I'll never be in another relationship. And I'm not a therapist, but having seen this a lot and gone through it myself, I think the most important relationship you can figure out is your own with yourself, and then the rest of it just unfolds. But if you're looking outside for validation or justification or proof that you're worthwhile or matter, then that's a really difficult place to be in. If you can work on kind of getting true with yourself and being okay as your own human, then you're in a really powerful position, regardless of your financial situation. What other limiting beliefs? I think those are the big ones. I mean, they're built around finances and ability to manage it, and kind of your lovability, where you belong in the world. And I think a lot of women, especially older women, have been kind of trained by our upbringing to put others first, and that it's selfish to take care of yourself or put yourself first. That's a very limiting belief.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned making peace with past decisions was also very crucial to the healing process. What does forgiveness of your former self look like, and why is that such a
I think forgiveness of former self is, for me, acknowledging doing the best you can in the situation you're in and not being stuck in it. So if I'm able to look back and say, well, 10 years ago, my situation was entirely different and I wasn't equipped to handle with grace what was going on in my life. Would I be different now? I would hope so. I hope I've grown over the past decade, but I did the best I could with what I had at the time and didn't stay stuck in it.
Right answer. How did you go from financial devastation to financial confidence? And what do women need to understand about money during divorce? Which I feel like you kind of already answered that. But is there anything you
I would say it's a balancing act. And I don't know that we've talked about this. What women need to understand about money in divorce is, on one hand, there are rules in your jurisdiction wherever you live that's going to guide what decisions can be made financially. Different states, even different counties within the same state, are going to make different financial decisions. They're going to have different rules about alimony, about support, about not, they might have different outlooks on what's marital, what's not marital. Um, Getting clear on what are the rules for the sandbox you're playing in. So in other words, if you're in a state that doesn't have rules about alimony and the tendency for alimony is limited at best, to go into a divorce process and expect you're going to get lifetime alimony and never have to work is unrealistic. Does it happen? Could it happen? It could. Anything can happen. But it's really unrealistic to be fighting for something that is just not upheld where you live. So a dose of reality is really important. And then the flip side of that coin is, don't undervalue yourself. Now, maybe you didn't earn as much. Maybe you did. Maybe you were working outside the home. Maybe you weren't. You had value no matter what in that relationship. And often I will see women going through the divorce process and after get small. So they might have an inclination, if they're working on a budget for how they're going to live independently, they're going to take how they would normally live, like what life has been like for 20 years, and they will shrink it. Like, oh, I used to go out with my girlfriends once a week. I'm not doing that anymore. Off the budget. I used to get manicures. I'm not doing that. Well, we used to take trips to Europe. I will just camp for a weekend. And they reduce their financial need, almost like negotiating against themselves. That's not necessary either. Like, try to balance between what is reality, which is it's still a legal process. You're dissolving a legal contract and it's got to be under the rules of where you live. What's that reality? And then realize that your contribution was important. And in many cases, if you've been home for 20 years, raising children, taking care of the household, whatever, and you're going back to work like I did, your upside is probably not as great, could be, but probably not, as your spouse who's had a 20 or 30-year career. That might not be equalized ever. So keep that in mind as you're having your settlement discussions and be really clear on it. And I tell people, you're really boiling down to four things financially in the divorce process: what you earn, what you spend, what you have, and what you owe. Those are the four things you're looking at. And then you're dividing them between two people. If what you earn will likely never be as much as you're going to be ex-partner, there should be a conversation about that when you're talking about settlement. It shouldn't just be, you're on your own, good luck to you. Now, if, as I did, you say, fine, I'm on my own. I had equivalent of 4 years instead of permanent alimony. And then when my youngest child went to college or got out of high school, essentially, I was on my own. But that was by choice. So if you're making decisions by choice, rock on, more power to you. If you're making decisions because you don't think you're worth more, take a look at that. women, especially women in long-term marriages, we call it gray or silver divorce, tend to undervalue themselves and kind of look for the crumbs. It's a horrible process, divorce is, but undervaluing yourself through it will not help it be any better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious what role yoga and mindfulness play in your emotional recovery and strength building.
It was very important, and I don't have a strong practice now, and it's on my to-do list to get back to it. It, I mean, I think yoga inherently is it's centering. It's time to quiet your mind. And when I can, speak for me, a decade ago, I was in a new job, going through divorce. My brain was never at rest. Like it was just monkey mind all the time. So the time that I took out for yoga, it helped me survive. It helped me chill. It helped me like let my nervous system settle down. Hopefully it helped me make better decisions, at least in some places. Um, it was one of the things I did when going through the divorce. My divorce was about a year and a half long. That I had continuity in. I had a really strong yoga practice before I became a financial advisor. And then I still had it. And divorce causes an awful lot of changes outside your marriage. So changes with your friendships, changes with your social structure, changes with, what used to be couples nights with other couples. You're no longer a couple, you're not invited to them. Or you're going along, but you're going along as a single, and it's just a lot of things shift. Yoga for me provided continuity. And I think if people have that, that's another tendency of women, right? Is we stop doing the things we used to do because now we're focused on we got to do this moving forward in the divorce context. If you can keep some continuity, like if you have always hiked, keep hiking. If you paint for release, keep painting. If you play the piano, if you play mahjong, whatever things you did that were important to you, try to keep them. Keep that in your life. Or sometimes it's not the season for it anymore, but fill its place with something other than work or frenzy.
That's great advice. I love that. If someone listening feels stuck right now, whether it's emotionally, financially, or spiritually, what is the very first step you would suggest they take toward reclaiming control?
Well, that's a really good question in so many ways. I think figure out one small step because it can be so overwhelming. If you try to fix all of you, especially if you're feeling lost and if you're feeling unbalanced in your life in so many places, relationship, work, social, friends, spiritual, if it's overwhelming. If you can figure out one thing, just one thing, and build that into a habit or keep it in your life. And once that's established, figure out the next thing. But if you try to take it on all at once, it could eat you alive. It could be totally overwhelming. If you take the elephant one bite at a time, if you do one small thing and you do it consistently, it actually will build change and become natural. And then you can layer on and add the next thing and the next thing. And then 10 years later, you'll look back and go, I survived. And look at me, you know?
Yeah, that's so vital. Talking about 10 years later, the name of our podcast is In the Black, and that is a financial term for being in a positive place, which, as a financial advisor, you obviously know.
A good place to be in the black.
Yes, yes. So we always ask, what does being in the black look like or mean for you personally?
Okay, another good question. It means having a solid foundation that allows you the freedom to explore other things.
I think that's my favorite answer.
Aw, well, thanks. It was off the cuff, but no, I think having a solid foundation, especially when the world is shifting or you're going through a lot of change, divorce, other transitions, what have you, is really meaningful. And I don't know that, again, women have been trained, have been supported in, have been educated to build that foundation. Like often we operate from a really shaky space because we're caring for everyone around us and all the other responsibilities. But if you have a solid foundation, all the other things can either fall into place or fall away, and you can do them with more ease. Yeah, I think In the Black is foundational.
And where can our listeners find you?
So, Bridging Divorce Solutions is my website. I also have Bridging Wealth Solutions, is the financial advisor website. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Bridging Divorce and LinkedIn as Brenda Bridges.
Awesome. And we'll link that in the show notes and on our Instagram page as well. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us and sharing what you do. I'm very excited to see the growth that your company, the growth that you will have to helping so many people, because I know that's going to help them navigate through divorce, help them navigate through those financial situations. So thank you for finding that need. And I just hope to see so much growth from you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
We appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of In the Black. I hope today's story left you feeling inspired and reminded of the incredible strength that lies in each of us. Our guest today has taken her toughest challenges and transformed them into something beautiful, reminding us all that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to find light in the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you.